Hello, my name is Yulia Kovalchuk, and I'm one of the founders of the project of sexual education for teens and youth that is called Vpershe. Vpershe in Ukrainian means for the first time, and for the first time we created a website where teenagers and youth can access scientific information about their body, sex, sexuality, which is written in simple language, and where they can ask anonymous questions to a certified medical professional, a psychologist, or a sexologist, and get their answer. People do not use contraception. We have the highest rate of HIV and AIDS in Europe. We have a very high rate of teenage pregnancies, unwanted pregnancies, and I think that's just coming from basically the lack of knowledge, lack of accessible information, and the taboo status of the subject. There are a lot of initiatives which are more regional or more offline, and there's some very nice initiatives which post information for older audiences or parents, but we are the first project which actually aims to teach teenagers a lot. So for that reason, the style of our articles we describe as a cool older sister or cool older brother, where we're not trying just to teach you, but we're being like a little bit funny with it. We are writing things simply, explaining everything, every difficult word, because actually if you even write an article about something like gender, actually some people, some school kids will not know what gender means. For example, we also write stories of grown-up people where they tell or confide about some of their teenage experiences, like some complexes, some difficult situations, some funny situations, so that teenagers can feel that they're not alone going through this. Thinking, for example, that my boobs are too small, or like I'm still a virgin, that's scary, or something like this. It's nice when sometimes you really get the response where people say, oh, thank you, this really supported me. I really didn't have someone to talk to this about, and I'm so glad that you guys can give me an answer. Also, we get a lot of the response from a little bit older people, which say that they really wish something like this existed when they were growing up. And even essentially, we started as a project for teenagers, but now we see that our audience is actually not just teenagers, but also just young people at large, because since our generation didn't really have this type of education, a lot of the people still don't know very well, like how to use contraception, why is it so important. One really curious myth, which I didn't even know about, because basically I've been studying mostly abroad. I've lived in many different countries, and basically I've kind of been all over the place since I've been 17 and now coming back here, is something called telegony. It's a pseudoscientific theory that a woman gathers genetic information of each man that she sleeps with, and that it will turn out in her first child. And it's crazy because they even made up a whole like scientific term for it, and some kids told us that their biology teachers would tell them about it. And then for the first time when I heard about it, I thought that's quite strange, because I'm working quite closely with like biology, and I've never heard the term. And when I read it, I was kind of completely shocked. But also I think it's important to just dispel some like very basic misunderstandings, I would call them, not even myth, meaning like I think in Ukraine, a general perception of like STDs and stuff like this is very optimistic. I don't think anyone ever points out to us that it's very, very common to get an STD, that a lot of STDs do not have any symptoms, so you will just find out if you actually get tested, and that's why a lot of people don't use contraception. And just telling people some things like, 80 to 90% of sexually active people will contract human papillomavirus at least once in lifetime, makes them really think hard about why it is important to use condoms. And so actually it's almost amazing, but we've got not a lot of negative response so far. Even my grandparents, who at first thought I was completely crazy, now think that what I'm doing is fine. So